All right, I've given you my wide receivers, running backs, and quarterbacks updated Dynasty tier ranking lists already, and I'm finishing off the series today with the tight end position. Do me a massive favor, drop a like because every like really does help support the channel. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content because it's a great place to be, and comment down below who is a tight end that you think is criminally underrated right now in Dynasty football. All right, we'll start with the F tier and we'll go up to the S tier, and I'll explain why I have players in certain places as we go. All right, at the F tier, really tough injury for him this year, especially with how late into his career he suffered it. Makes me think about Logan Thomas. You know, he was having a great into his career. Logan Thomas wasn't as successful as this player throughout his entire career, but the injury really set him back at an old age, and that is Zach Ertz. We're going to put Zach Ertz at the very, very bottom, 32 years old. I know he has that 2 years left on his contract, but he might not even be himself until he's 33, 34. And then what does he have left while Kyler Murray is also rehabbing? So he's my number 24 on this list. At number 23, an athletic player, but no long-term security in his current situation. That is Gerald Everett. Again, no security. 1 year deal, has been very good with the Chargers, but the Chargers could very well replace him in the draft this year, and that scares me because he's only really good based off of volume. All right, next we have Noah Fant. I'm ready to give up. I know he's only 25, but was supposed to be a priority in Denver. That never happened. He couldn't stay healthy, and they didn't give him the target share he deserved. Now he's going to the Seahawks. They use 3 different tight ends, it feels, on a consistent basis. And like, when does Noah Fant get the target share that he needs to be a starting tight end for you? He is tight end 20 on the year. I don't know. Maybe this is too low. I liked his athletic profile coming out of Iowa, but I'm struggling to see a scenario in which he ever becomes a dominant tight end in the NFL. And seems like he likes Seattle, so I wouldn't be surprised if he stays there. Next, we have the 29-year-old Tyler Higbee. Again, another player who, it's very situational for him. When Matthew Stafford is there, he's up, he's down. Will Stafford be there next year? What will this team look like going forward entirely? We have no idea. 29 years old isn't a death sentence at all for a tight end. They can play well into their early 30s. But again, not a lot of upside here, in my opinion, moving forward. Tight end 16 on the year. All right, to begin the D tier, at the very, very end, we have Dawson Knox, who, after having a very big 2021 season and was a very reliable option for people, has been really, really mediocre this year. I mean, definition of boom bust. In the first 5 weeks, there wasn't a single week that you would have wanted to start him. And from week 6 to week 14, there was only 3 times that you would have wanted to start him. So again, really boom bust. I don't think he's going to be a priority of this team as far as the offense goes. And they could very well add to this wide receiver room again next year. Dawson Knox, there's just not enough consistency, and I don't see a pathway in which he becomes a priority as a weapon in this offense. Next, a player that I'm very curious to see where he goes, Mike Gesicki. I want Mike Gesicki to go somewhere in free agency and become another important piece to an offense, because in Miami, he's not important at all. I mean, multiple games with 1 or 2 targets this year. When you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you're going to throw the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So free agency, I think that could help him. I think that could potentially improve his dynasty stock. So he's a firm hold for me right now, but I'm very curious to see what free agency will mean for him. Next, a young athletic tight end who is a freak at the combine, has had a game where he broke out in week 12 versus Pittsburgh. He randomly had 9 targets. After that, they haven't used him much. I still like the upside. I am hoping that this last quarter, if you will, of the season, the Colts decide to really use him heavily, and that is Jelani Woods. You drafted him relatively high. Why not see what you have with him? Why not give him target share? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. We have a little bit of a run of rookies here now with Chigo, I'm not going to try and pronounce his first name, but I know it's Okonkwo is the last name. First name, a lot of people just call him Chigo. Chigoziem, I think is how you say it, Chigoziem. But athletic player out of Maryland, 6'3", 238. Played with Tua's brother last year before being drafted. And in the last 2 games, he's been a very good option for this team, who, when Treylon Burks is not healthy, maybe Chigo is starting to become the answer for them. And I still think Treylon's going to be the number 1, the alpha on this team. But I think you have a good future of receiving options here with Chigo and Treylon in Tennessee. In week 13, 10 fantasy points, had 5 targets, played a career high 58% of the snaps. In week 14, played 49% of the snaps, but saw a career high in fantasy points at 18.5 as he got into the end zone. And he was expected to play more last week, but he's typically only out there for 2 tight end sets. And because they were down in the game, they didn't run a lot of 2 tight end sets. But I think you'll continually see Chigo get involved purely out of necessity. And I think the athleticism can take him far. I think this is a high for a lot of people, but I'm very intrigued to see what he can do moving forward. Next, another rookie tight end in Cade Otton, who is seemingly finding an important role with the Tampa Bay Bucks. If Tom Brady returns, let's say he signs a 2-year deal, I think you could actually put Otton a little bit higher. But if Tom Brady is gone, what does that mean for Cade Otton? Because we don't know who the next quarterback will be. Will they favor tight ends? Will they target Cade? Really talented guy out of Washington, first year in the league, showing some good signs, but again, still a lot of question marks. Next, a very, very good athlete who I think, despite probably never being the dominant tight end on his team, could develop a really nice role for himself out of necessity as well. That's Isaiah Likely. Only 22 years old, 6'4", 240 pounds. So not exactly like the size you desperately love, but I think he can be used as kind of that hybrid wide receiver tight end on this team, and they need it. And we've seen success for him already in doses, including the preseason, couple games in season. So it could be really interesting to see what his career looks like. Next, it's a little bit strange with Darren Waller. Where exactly do you put Darren Waller at this point in time? 30 years old, right? Still has a long-term deal with Vegas, but it will expire at some point. And really, since week 1 of the 2021 season, he has been a pretty big disappointment. Hasn't been able to stay healthy. Missed, I believe, 6 games or 7 games last year due to injury. This year, he's already missed the same amount. He might miss more. Where do we place a aging tight end who is on a team that's in an identity crisis, who has a contract, but it's not a long-term one? Where do you put Darren Waller? Like, some people might be like, why is he so low? How much higher do you want to put him? Like, where do we think he should be? And then at the top of this tier for me is the number 1 tight end in this year's class. That is Trey McBride. And I do believe that Trey McBride has a huge advantage now heading into his 2nd year with the Zach Ertz injury. I don't anticipate Ertz being ready to start the season. So Trey McBride throughout the offseason, throughout training camp, is going to be the tight end 1 on this team. He's going to be practicing that way. And I think it makes sense for this team to start looking towards his way to build for the future. Only 23 years old, had 90 plus catches at Colorado last year. He can be a big producing tight end. Let's see if they give him that opportunity here in year 2. And I feel like the next tier up from like C above, if you have one of these tight ends, you should feel like relatively good in Dynasty. I feel like from the C tier all the way up to the S tier, there's some good options here that you could feel hopeful for moving forward. At the back half of my C tier, a player that a lot of people told me I had too low this offseason. I still have concerns, as I did this offseason, about his long-term contract with Dallas. Franchise tagged. Both sides didn't seem like they wanted to meet in the middle. They drafted Jake Ferguson, who I believe could be his replacement. But for now, if he were to sign a 3-4 year deal, we probably have to put him higher than this, but that's not the reality we're currently living in. So I'll put Dalton Schultz here at the end of the C tier. 26 years old, so he's not old at all. Definitely back on track with this offense, but will he be replaced next year? This team is in cap hell. They have to make some difficult decisions. And will Dalton Schultz be a priority for them? I'm not certain. I don't know what the answer is just yet. Next, we have a young, very intriguing tight end at Greg Dulcich. Some people might have him higher, and I can understand where you're coming from. Very good prospect out of UCLA, only 22 years old, has put up some big numbers, specifically with Russell Wilson, and seems like he is slowly becoming Russell Wilson's second favorite target in this offense. So if you have him higher than this, I don't disagree with you. There's just other players that I'm more excited about. One of those being Cole Kmet, who we have been waiting on the breakout this year. We have believed in Justin Fields all offseason. We have believed in Cole Kmet. And boy, was it a tough start to the season. From weeks 1 to 8, Cole Kmet didn't score over 10 fantasy points a single time. And from weeks 1 to 8, he was averaging under 3 targets per game. But then from weeks 9 to 13, we've had a lot of good performances, and it's been coincided with Justin Fields' breakout, which we love to see. Justin Fields will be the long-term answer here, and he's finding a reliable option in Cole Kmet. 6'6", 260, only 23 years old, has gone through that phase of learning the NFL, and now I think we're finally going to start to see the breakout here as he grows with Justin Fields. Tight end 11 on the year. Already 2 games from week 9 to 13 of over 20 fantasy points. And with Darnell Mooney going down, I'm sure they'll draft a wide receiver, but Cole Kmet will continue to be very necessary for this offense. Next, a tight end who's a little bit older than some of these younger guys, but I love his situation, love his talent. Was frustrated for the longest time that he wasn't utilized. Loved him out of Miami, really enjoyed his film, thought he could be a dominant tight end in fantasy football. And it was like for his entire rookie contract, he was held in tight end purgatory for some reason. Then the Browns signed him to a long-term deal as David Njoku, and he became a big part of the offense this year. And we've already seen a small sample size with him being with his new quarterback in Deshaun Watson. The first game with him in week 14, he had 9 targets, caught 7 of them for 59 yards and a touchdown. We like to see that. We could see a complete revitalization for David Njoku, who has all the athleticism to be a top 5 tight end in the NFL. Now, maybe he has a quarterback as well. All right, to begin the B tier, man, it's really, really been sad to see this player's usage. To start the season, it wasn't until week 6 where he had a game over 10 fantasy points. The quarterback position is constantly changing. It was Trey Lance, Jimmy G. Now Jimmy G is almost 100% not returning to this team, in my opinion. Now you got Brock Purdy doing his thing. It's so strange, and they decide to use him as a blocker more than they decide to use him as a receiver, even though he's a great receiver and very good after the catch. George Kittle. I want to put him higher, but George Kittle isn't 25 anymore, guys. He is 29. And we have seen multiple years now where his usage has been nowhere near what we wanted it to be. So I don't think I can put him higher than the other players on this list, but you might disagree with me, and that's okay. Next, we have a player who had a pretty good breakout this year. He is still the tight end 9 on the season, despite missing the last 4 games. He's been great in an offense that is very efficient, and he should be a big part of this team moving forward. That is Dallas Goedert, only 27 years old. I think he still has a good 3 to 4 years left in his prime and a very good offense to be attached to. And then at the beginning of this tier, you might disagree with me, but I'm going to put Pat Freiermuth at the very, very beginning of this tier. Pat Freiermuth and Kenny Pickett are locked at the hip. Since Kenny Pickett took over, Pat Freiermuth has been the second highest targeted player on this team. I think he's averaging over 6 targets per game, if I'm not mistaken, with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. He's shown ability to catch multiple touchdowns last year with Big Ben. He's shown ability to be a good receiver over the middle of the field this year. He's continually growing, only in his second year. Call him Baby Gronk. I think his best years are actually still ahead of him. I'll take Pat Freiermuth here at the beginning of the B tier. If you want to move these players around, that's fine. If you want to put Goddard ahead of Pat, fair. That's fine if you feel that way. But I would rather have Pat in his age than Goddard at his current age. And it's a very small thing, but it's awesome to see Pat Freiermuth at such a early point in his career make such a huge fantasy impact. That bodes really well for the rest of his career. Now we get to the A and S tier, and there are only 2 tight ends in each of these tiers. I think there will be a lot of disagreement from this part of the video, and honestly, that's okay. You can let me know in the comments below if you feel some type of way, if you feel like I'm thinking too much about the future, or if I'm not considering the present enough, let me know, okay? But I feel like TJ Hawkinson is more than deserving of being in the A tier. Why should TJ Hawkinson not be in this A tier? Genuinely, I want you to tell me in the comments below if you disagree. 25 years old, first round draft capital from the Lions, and he just got traded to the Vikings. But since he was traded to the Vikings, check this out. He has been the tight end 3 since that time, second in targets for tight ends since that time, and second in receiving yards since that time for tight ends as well. There is no reason to believe that TJ Hawkinson can't be a top 3 to 5 tight end for the next 3 to 4 years in Minnesota, especially if Kirk Cousins is going to continue to lead this team to wins and they extend his contract year after year. Kirk Cousins loves his tight ends. This move for Hawkinson was the best thing that could have happened for his fantasy value. Some people might not like it, but you trade what you sent away for TJ Hawkinson, you have to sign him to a long-term deal. Otherwise, that trade looks awful for you. And that's how I feel the Minnesota Vikings are going to move forward. They will sign him to a long-term deal. I expect a 3 to 4 to 5 year deal. Probably not 5, but I would say 3 to 4 seems pretty safe. And he's probably found his new home here in Minnesota. The other player that I have here in this A tier, and a lot of you are going to tell me he needs to be S tier. I think it's short-sighted in Dynasty football. Okay? That is Travis Kelce. I'm a Chiefs fan, so don't even come at me and say, really? Why does this guy hate the Chiefs? I love the Chiefs. Lived in Kansas City for a decade. I'm a fan of the Chiefs, okay? But time comes for everyone. Time comes for everyone. Travis Kelce is 33 years old, okay? If Travis Kelce is producing these kind of numbers at the age 35, I will hold my hands up and say I'm wrong. But there is so much historical data that would suggest that there is going to be a decline for Travis Kelce's game at some point. And I think the Chiefs are well aware that they need to start adding options and weapons for Pat Mahomes to grow his career with. That's why they went out and got Kadarius Toney. That's why they drafted Sky Moore. So the Chiefs are aware of how old he's getting. He's aware of how old he's getting. He will be the number 1 for as long as his body can take it. And if you have Kelce in Dynasty, you don't sell him because you're probably not getting a first, right? If someone gives you a first for Travis Kelce in Dynasty football right now, you take that in a heartbeat and you don't think about it. You take it in a heartbeat and you move on and you thank yourself in a year or 2 from now, okay? But if you have Travis Kelce and the best offers you're getting are a second round pick, ride it out. Ride it out. Win a championship this year. Maybe win a championship next year if he's still playing at the same level. But don't expect to get this kind of value for the next 3 to 5 year window, because time comes for every receiver, every tight end. We've seen it with the greats, Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, Shannon Sharp. We've seen it with all the greats. Time always comes for them, even when we're watching them play at an elite level in their mid-30s and we're like, wait, maybe they are invincible. No, they're not. Time comes for every single person, and I believe it is short-sighted to put Travis Kelce in the S tier here. And honestly, he would still be someone in a Dynasty startup draft that I'm avoiding based off of ADP. If he's going to go in like the 3rd round, I would be avoiding him in Dynasty football and choosing those young wide receivers instead. All right, so obviously there's going to be some controversy here, right? I have the S tier left and I have 2 tight ends left, Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts. Who is the tight end 1 in Dynasty football right now? Well, I think if we look in 3 years, it's going to be different to what we see right now. But as of right now, with how many games the Falcons have won and the unknowns at quarterback We're about to see Desmond Ridder for the first time this week. What will he look like? Can he be reliable? I can't put Kyle Pitts at 1 just yet. I have to keep him at number 2, and I have to put Mark Andrews right ahead of him. Now, if Lamar Jackson decides not to return to Baltimore and the Ravens don't franchise tag him, it could be truly awful for Mark Andrews, because the reason he is so special is, yes, his skill set, but also how he is prioritized by his quarterback. By far, easily the favorite target for Lamar Jackson. So if he moves on in free agency and they don't franchise tag him, this could be worst case scenario. We're talking potential fall out of the top 5 in fantasy football next year if that were to be the case. Now, I anticipate the Ravens having above like a 50 IQ and signing Lamar Jackson to a long-term deal. That's why I'm confident putting him here. He has his own long-term deal in Mark Andrews, tight end 2 on the year, tight end 1 last year where he put up huge numbers. They haven't been able to really replace Hollywood Brown. Bateman's been injured. Mark Andrews continues to be, even through his own injuries, the most reliable target in this offense, and that will continue to happen when Lamar Jackson is healthy. Now, Kyle Pitts, he is at my number 2 spot. I know some people will be frustrated. Oh my gosh, Kyle Pitts, big bust this year, didn't return draft capital in redraft leagues. Well, thank God we're not playing in redraft leagues. Thank God this is Dynasty. We're talking about a freak athlete. I know you've heard it. You're probably tired of hearing it. 6'6", the highest draft capital ever spent on a tight end, and he is 22 years old. Pump your brakes, relax. Even if he doesn't break out until the age of 24, you will still have the tight end 1 in Dynasty football. Still, because of the athletic profile that he has. The knee is not a concern for me. There should be no long-term concern with the knee injury, as we've heard from reliable doctors. And there is hope, from me at least, that coaching staff changes at some point. I don't think Arthur Smith should be the head coach anymore. And I'm hoping that changes come. And when those changes come, whoever is installed into this offense is aware of the weapons that they have. So Marcus Mariota is not the future. Is Desmond Ridder? It's hard to say. Could they find an answer in a free agency, in the draft? It is possible in this year's draft and free agency. So let's see what will happen. But as we always say, bet on the talent long term. That is what I'm doing with Kyle Pitts. If anyone is questioning him in Dynasty, he's still a fantastic buy low at this point. I would happily send a late first if that's what it would take for Kyle Pitts in any draft. You're getting a huge steal. He will return value. I promise you, it will happen. Be patient. Wait. It will happen, okay? We're talking about most tight ends who break out at the age of 25 to 26 to 27, and Kyle Pitts is 22 years old. Be patient. He will return value, and you will enjoy starting him well into the future in your Dynasty football league. So that's my top 24. It's fluid. It changes every other week, every couple weeks. And our rankings over on Patreon that are that are updated as the season goes on. In the offseason, they're also updated for rookie drafts, for Dynasty drafts. You can check out our Patreon with the link below. Like the video, subscribe if you want to show some support. And I want to know, give me your top 5 TV shows of this year. I asked for movies in the past, but I want to know your top 5 TV shows. What are some TV shows that I should dig into as the holiday season is coming up? Huge love. We'll see you in the next video. Enjoy your week.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.